Welcome to the deep dive. We're the ones who wade through those complex sources you send over and pull out the really key stuff.
That's the plan.
Today, it's all about a practical guide to building agents. A
Mm.
really interesting document someone flagged for us.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you're maybe hitting the limits with your standard automation or, feeling like your LLM integrations aren't quite going far enough, this
Mhm.
is probably for you.
Mm.
Our mission really is to give you a solid grasp on what building these AI agents actually involves. Like, how are they different? And crucially, when is it actually worth the effort for you?
Exactly. Because it's a step up, right? This isn't just your average chatbot answering basic questions.
Well,
The guide defines an AI agent as a system that can independently get tasks done for you.
independently being the key word.
Right. The LLM is the brain here. It's not just spitting back info. It's managing the whole workflow, deciding what tools it needs, when to use them, all the way to the finish line. So yeah, if you're thinking about automating more complex stuff, things that need actual, well, intelligence, this is where it gets good.
Okay, so let's say someone listening is thinking, maybe this applies to me. When does the guide say you should actually consider building an agent? Because it could sound like overkill for some problems, couldn't it?
It could, yeah. You don't want to use a sledgehammer to crack a nut.
The guide uses this comparison with payment fraud analysis.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that? Why is an agent potentially a game changer there for our listener?
Sure. So think about typical fraud detection now. For you, it might be a bunch of set rules, right? Like flag a transaction over X amount or from certain places.
A
Like
checklist.
exactly, a checklist. But an LLM agent, it can act more like a seasoned investigator. It looks at the whole picture, your spending history, weird little anomalies that a rigid rule wouldn't catch.
Things that feel off but don't break a specific rule.
Precisely. And it makes a much more nuanced call, so that really shows where agents excel. Situations where those fixed, rule-based systems just, well, they struggle with the complexity and all the exceptions.
So it's less about ripping out everything you already have
They're definitely not.
and more about targeting those really tricky problems that rules just can't seem to solve for you. The guide mentions specific workflow traits that are like signals, saying, hey, maybe an agent is the right fit here. What are those signs you should look for in your own work?
Yeah, there are basically three main things that should make you pause and think agent. First, if your workflow involves complex decision-making.
Okay.
So lots of judgment calls needed, lots of exceptions, or decisions that really depend on the context. Think about approving refunds. You got to weigh the customer's history, why they want the return, lots of factors. An agent can handle that way better than static rules ever could for you.
Right, makes sense.
Second indicator, maintaining your current rules is becoming a real headache.
The maintenance trap.
Exactly. If your systems are just choked with complicated rules and it's costly and error-prone every time you need an update, maybe like keeping up with changing vendor security review stuff, an agent is just much more adaptable for you.
Okay, complex decisions, painful rule maintenance. What's the third flag that suggests an agent might be the way to go for you?
The third one is when you rely heavily on unstructured data, meaning things like natural language emails, support tickets, conversations, or needing to pull info out of documents like contracts or, say, insurance claims, stuff that isn't neatly sitting in database columns.
Gotcha.
Agents, with their language understanding, they're really powerful for that kind of work for you. But the guide does stress, you really need to check if your specific problems tick these boxes before you commit. Sometimes, honestly, a simpler approach is still better for you.
Good point. Always validate first. Okay, so let's say you've looked at your workflows, and yep, a few seem like prime candidates. What are the essential building blocks when you actually start putting an AI agent together for yourself? What are the core parts?
The guide breaks it down into three main things, nice and clear. First, the model. That's the LLM, the brain doing the reasoning and making decisions for your agent.
Okay.
Second, the tools. These are like external functions or APIs your agent calls to interact with the world, get data, take action.
Right.
And third, instructions. These are your explicit guidelines, the rules of the road, the guardrails that tell your agent how to operate.
Model, tools, instructions. Let's unpack those a bit for you, our listener. Starting with the model, the agent's brain. There are so many LLMs out there now. How do you even start choosing the right one for what you need? Seems tricky.
Yeah, it can feel like a lot. The guide points out that different models have different strengths, right? How complex a task they can handle, how fast they respond, latency, basically, which affects your user experience.
And cost, presumably.
And cost. Absolutely. Big factor. Interestingly, they even suggest you might use different models for different steps within the same agent if the workflow is really
Oh,
complex.
interesting. Like a specialist team.
Kinda, yeah. Maybe a faster, cheaper model for quick info retrieval and then a more powerful one for the really tricky decision-making part for you.
Okay.
And a really practical tip they give is start prototyping with the most capable model you can get for each task. That sets your performance baseline.
See what's actually possible first.
Exactly. Then, once you know the ceiling, you can try swapping in smaller, maybe faster or cheaper models and see if they still cut it for your accuracy and speed needs.
That's smart. Prove it works great, then optimize. Okay, what about these tools? That's how the agent actually interacts with your systems, right? Your CRM, your database.
Precisely. Tools give your agent hands and feet, basically. They let it go beyond just thinking. It could be API calls to your database, updating a CRM record, sending an email for you.
Or even handing off to a person.
Yeah, or escalating to a human agent if it gets stuck or needs approval. And what's really cool is the guide mentions, for older systems, maybe without nice APIs.
Legacy stuff.
Right. Agents might even use these computer-used models to interact through the user interface, like mimicking clicks and typing.
Wow, okay.
And they break tools down into three broad types for you. Data tools for fetching context, action tools for actually doing things in systems, and orchestration tools where one agent can actually call another agent as a tool. We can touch on that more later.
Okay.
The main thing for you is these tools need to be clearly defined, standardized, so they're easy to plug in and manage across different agents you might build down the line.
Got it. So model is the smarts, tools are the interaction. What about instructions? This feels like where you really define the job for your agent.
Absolutely critical for you. Instructions are what shape the agent's behavior, cut down on ambiguity. You don't want it guessing too much, and just make it perform better.
And you write good ones.
Well, the guide gives some solid advice. Use your existing docs like SOPs, support scripts. Give the LLM clear routines.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
Right. Also, explicitly tell the agent to break big tasks down into smaller steps, just like you would yourself, right?
Yeah.
Define clear actions for each step, less wiggle room. And crucially, think about edge cases.
The weird stuff that always happens.
The weird stuff. Give the agent instructions for handling them, conditional steps, maybe fallback actions. They even hint that future models might help generate these instructions from your documents automatically for you.
Ooh, that would be a huge time saver.
It'd be, yeah.
All right, so you've got your model, your tools, your carefully crafted instructions.
Yeah.
How does the agent actually run? How does it execute the workflow you want automated? The guide talks about orchestration patterns.
Right. And the advice is start simple for you. Don't overcomplicate it from day one.
Always good advice.
Generally, there are two main flavors they talk about: single agent systems and multi-agent systems.
Okay, let's take the simpler one first, single agent.
Okay.
What does that involve for you?
So a single agent system is basically one LLM equipped with all the tools and instructions it needs. It runs in a loop, thinking, using tools, thinking again, until it hits some kind of exit condition you've set.
What kind of exit condition?
Could be several things. Maybe it successfully calls a specific final output tool,
Hmm.
or the model decides it's answered your question directly and doesn't need more tools,
Huh.
or it hits an error it can't fix. Or, importantly, it reaches a max number of turns, a safety net, so it doesn't loop forever for you.
Right, prevent infinite loops.
Exactly. They mention an example using their agent's SDK, a runner.run function,
Huh.
which basically kicks off this processing loop for you.
Okay.
And a key point here for you is that you can often handle quite a bit of complexity within just one agent by being smart with your prompt templates, using variables and logic in the prompt itself rather than needing lots of different agents.
So you can stretch a single agent quite far.
You can. The guide suggests you only really need to think about multiple agents when maybe the prompt logic gets super messy and hard to manage, or if one agent is juggling too many similar tools and getting confused.
That makes sense. Don't add complexity unless you really have to. So when do you need these more complex multi-agent systems for your workflows? And what kinds are there?
Yeah, you'd look at multi-agent setups for those really big, complex workflows where, dividing the labor among specialized agents just makes sense. Better performance, easier to scale, maybe more robust overall for you.
Okay.
The guide highlights two main patterns. First is the manager pattern.
Sounds hierarchical.
It is. Think of a central manager agent, like a team lead. It coordinates a bunch of specialist agents. It uses tool calls to dish out tasks to the specialists and then pulls their results back together for you.
Gives you central control.
Exactly. Good when you want to keep oversight and get a single synthesized output. They use a translation example. A manager agent needs a sentence in Spanish, French, and Italian, so it calls separate specialist translation agents as tools.
Simple, clear example. Okay, so the manager pattern is one. What's the other multi-agent approach you should be aware of?
The other main one is the decentralized pattern. Here, agents act more like peers. They hand off tasks directly to each other based on who's best suited for the next step.
A handoff.
Yeah, and the guide clarifies this is a one-way transfer. Agent A calls a specific handoff function or tool to pass the task and context to Agent B, and then Agent A is done with it.
Where would that be useful for you?
Think customer service triage. An initial agent figures out what the customer needs: tech support, sales, order issue, and then hands them off cleanly to the right specialized agent to handle it from there. Very efficient for that kind of conversational routing for you.
Yeah, I can see that. It avoids the first agent having to stick around. Okay, this is all fascinating, but with agents making decisions using tools, it brings up a big question for you. Safety. How do you stop them messing up or doing something risky? The guy talks about guardrails. Sounds crucial.
Oh, absolutely essential for you. Guardrails are how you manage the risks. Risks like data privacy, you don't want agents leaking sensitive info. And risks to your reputation, making sure agents act responsibly, align with your brand.
Can't have them going rogue.
Definitely not. And the guide really pushes for a layered defense. Use multiple types of guardrails because no single one catches everything.
Makes sense. What kinds of guardrails should you be thinking about putting in place?
They list quite a few important types for you. A relevance classifier keeps the agent on topic. A safety classifier catches things like jailbreak attempts or malicious prompts.
Protecting the agent itself.
Right. A PII filter, super important for blocking personal data leaks. Content moderation stops harmful or inappropriate output. Then there are tool safeguards.
What are those?
Basically assessing the risk of each tool. Maybe low-risk tools run freely, but high-risk ones like processing a big refund need extra checks or even human approval for you.
Wow.
You can also use traditional rules, block lists, length limits, things like that. And finally, output validation checking. If the agent's response actually sounds like your company, fits the brand voice, etc. for you.
That's a lot of layers.
Mm.
Seems comprehensive. Where do you even start implementing all that for yourself? Any advice there?
Yeah, the guide offers a practical starting point for you. Focus first on privacy and safety. Those are table stakes.
Get the critical stuff covered.
Right. Then, as you actually use the agents, watch for real-world problems or failures and add more guardrails based on what you see happening. It's an ongoing thing. You keep tweaking and optimizing for security and user experience for you.
Continuous improvement.
Exactly. They also mention how their SDK handles guardrails, sort of an optimistic execution where checks happen in the background, and if something bad is flagged, it throws an error, an exception that you can then handle.
Okay.
But a really, really critical point they make for you. You must plan for human intervention.
The human backstop.
Absolutely. Agents will fail sometimes. They'll hit edge cases they don't understand, or they'll need sign-off for risky actions. Having a human in the loop for those moments is non-negotiable for you to maintain control and prevent bad outcomes.
Couldn't agree more. Wow, okay. This has been a really thorough deep dive into building AI agents for you, our listener.
We covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. Let's quickly recap the main takeaways. We've seen agents aren't just fancier chatbots. They're systems that can autonomously run whole workflows, especially ones needing complex decisions or handling messy, unstructured data.
Right. That's the core difference.
We looked at the key parts you need: the model, the brain, the tools, the hands, and those vital instructions, the rulebook.
The 3 pillars.
We also explored how they run orchestration, from simpler single-agent loops
Which can do more than you might think.
to more complex multi-agent setups like the manager or decentralized patterns. And finally, the absolute need for strong, layered guardrails to keep everything safe and responsible for you.
Couldn't build them without guardrails, really.
No. It feels like agents are a real step up in automation for you, shifting from rigid rules to systems with more intelligence and adaptability.
Yeah, they can tackle a much wider range of tasks with more independence.
So as you, our listener, think about the workflows you wrestle with every day, here's something to chew on. Where could an intelligent agent bring a surprising amount of efficiency or independence that your traditional automation just hasn't managed for you?
Good question to ponder.
Maybe it's worth looking at some of those persistent challenges through this new agent lens. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.